Welcome back, guys. Hope you're doing great. And in this series of video, we're gonna learn how to create a reusable React components, just like in any kind of UI libraries like Material UI, shadcn, and all those stuff. So we're gonna understand how those guys are building those reusable components. What exactly happening behind these steps, right? So we are about to build a breadcrumb component inspired by modern design system patterns using Radix and slot for composition and the tailwind utilities for the styling purposes. So basically we're gonna learn this for ourselves without looking into any kind of frameworks like the shadcn material UI libraries, like those, right? So the most important thing is the series of videos and the code which we are talking about, this pattern is inspired by the open source UI library like shadcn and Radix, but we are implementing and try to understand it ourselves, what exactly happening behind those components, right? So you can find the codes, all these codes directly in their official documentation itself. I dropped it in the link itself, but I'm going to explain you what exactly happening in line by line and all those stuffs. So without wasting your time, let's get started. Alright then, guys, so you can get the source code along with the brief explanations of the each and every component, whatever we are going to discuss in the series of video. So we can get it from there. Alright, so I just uploaded all the details, the code informations, everything in the readme file itself over here, along with the references and all those stuff. Okay, so yeah, so without first what we need to do is let us open up the terminal. Okay, so let me bring the terminal straight away over here. So right now I'm in the desktop location, so I'm gonna create myself a new directory mkdir, or what we can do is let's say yeah, mkdir, which is going to be react ui elements, something like this. Then I'm gonna open it react ui elements. All right, so here we are. Let me bring it and let me make it a little bit bigger. Perfect. So let's open up the white.dev and click the get started, and you can see the command over here. In this case, I'm going to use the pnpm, so you can use any node package manager as you wish. Let me open up, clear it, pm create white dot slash. In this case, I'm going to bring that project directly into this local folder itself. So let me create that, and we're going to use the React TypeScript. We are not going to use the experimental, and yes, install it and run the project. So let me stop it, and here we go. So we have all the necessary things for the white object or white project. So now let's install the Tailwind CSS. Search for Tailwind CSS, installing Tailwind CSS with white. So this is the one. If you search for installing Tailwind CSS with white, and you can see they given you the project to install the white project and install these dependencies. Let's copy this, clear, pnpm add tailwind css at tailwind css slash wheat, and let me get into the app. I'm going to delete the app.css and index.css. Let's clear it out completely and copy this and put it inside the index.css. Then get into the app.tsx. I'm gonna delete it completely, and then here RAFC React snippets. Go ahead and download the React snippets from the Visual Studio Code extension, and then simply say it as app. Delete the unused import statement, save it, and let's make sure the Tailwind CSS are working perfectly fine. So width, of course, it's going to be screen width, the 100 viewport width and 100 viewport height, and overflow needs to be hidden, and everything needs to be in the center. Flex column item center and justify its center, which means display flex direction column, align item center, and justify content in the center. So now if I check this project up, the text app, it needs to be in the center location. Okay, so which is not working as it's supposed to be. I think we missed a step. Yes, so we have to add this plugin in the white config.ts. So I'm going to import this statement, copy it. Let's stop the server and import this and add this plugin rightly over here. Perfect. Now let's run the application and refresh it. You should be able to see your text in the center of the screen, which means it's working perfectly, right? So now what we have to do is, so under the source folder, I'm going to create a new folder called new folder called components. Inside the components folder, I'm going to create breadcrumb.tsx. So for this, what we are going to do is, so basically we need a certain packages. So simply search for CLSX. This is the one, CLSX. Okay. So this CLSX is the package, what we can say, it's a utility function, right? It's a utility function constraining the class names on conditionally, right? Conditionally, for condition based utility styling classes, we use the CLSX functions to combine those utility classes, tailwind utility classes based on a given condition. I need to apply those styles. So for that, we are using the CLSX. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add this pnpm add CLSX. Then I need the one more styles called tailwind merge. So the tailwind merge is the utility function to merge the tailwind utility classes efficiently. So think about it. If you're having P2, like see, if I'm having P2, which is basically padding, and again in the same line, if I'm writing P4, this could cause an error, right? It doesn't apply those styles more efficient way. So in order to overcome these kinds of issues, we use this tailwind merge. So this will merge the common classes and it will gives you the result in a perfect way. Like how it's going to merge? It's going to merge it like P2 and P4 combined as P6, like this. So that's how the expected result will be. So that's the reason we are using this tailwind merge CSS, tailwind merge utility function. So I'm going to copy this tailwind merge and paste it over here. Okay. So now we need to combine these two functions over here, this function and the CLSX function. We need to combine those two together, right? So let me show you how to do that. So inside the source folder, I'm going to create a library folder. And under the library folder, I'm going to create a new file called utils.ts. So here, basically, we need to import those two import statements. So import CLSX from CLSX. Then I need the type, since we are using the TypeScript, I need the type of class value because it needs to accept only the CSS classes, right? Then we need to import the tailwind merge, these two packages from those respective packages. Okay. So the utility function to check the conditional based CSS, we are using the CLS, right? And like to resolve the CSS conflicts in a more intelligent way, we are using the TW merge, right? So the CLSX handles the conditional given conditions. Like you can give the array of conditions. Like it doesn't matter how many conditions that you want. You can keep and add it. Okay. So basically what we are going to do is we are going to write a function. Okay. We are going to write a function that going to accept the inputs as the parameter, which is going to be array of inputs. Okay. And we need to combine those array of inputs by evaluating it's a proper CSS classes. Then we need to merge it, right? So what we have to do is, so here I'm going to say export const cn is equals to I'm going to create an arrow function. So here what we are going to do, we are going to receive the inputs. So we are going to use the rest operator. So triple dot inputs. Okay. So the reason why we are using the rest operator over here, because we need to accept any number of arguments. It doesn't matter how many number of, so if you are specifying the number of arguments over there, you can only send that specific number of arguments. So this function needs to ready to receive any number of arguments. So that's the reason. Okay. triple dot inputs colon, and it needs to receive only this specific type of values, which is the class values, only the tailwind utility classes. Apart from that, it should not, if you are supplying anything else, it will throws an error. Okay, then I need to return, I need to combine them, so use the t merge, and I need to apply those conditions, so I'm going to use the clsx. Then I need to supply that array of inputs to this function. That's it. That's the function which is all about. Okay, so once you finish this, next what we need to do is I'm gonna get back into the breadcrumb.tss. Okay, so here let's bring the necessary stuffs over here. So import star react from react. Okay, this needs to be as import everything as react from the react. Then import. Okay, so basically here we are going to use a very specific package, and the reason why we are using that package, let me explain why the time when we are writing the code. Okay, so we're going to use this at Radix -ui / react slot. This one, react slot at Radix / react slot. This is the very specific package that we are going to use. So you can see the YouTubers, like they are using this packages quite a lot, and even in the shadcn or any UI library they are using this. This is one of the like what is it? One of those used everywhere. One of the package used everywhere, but rarely explained properly. Right? That's that kind of tool it is. So I'll explain why we need the at Radix UI and React slot, what it actually does, and when you truly need it clearly and practically. So first you need to understand what is Radix UI React slot. So this at Radix UI React slot exports a single main component. So let me import this one, install this one. So this one, npm add at Radix UI slot. So along with this, we need to have the icons. So let's get the icons as well as. So for that, I'm going to use the Lucid React icons. Lucid React icon. So let me install these two. Then here, I'm going to import the slot. This one from the at React slot. Okay. So this is how this package is. It exports a single main component, which is going to be your slot. Okay, so in one line what we can say, slot allows a component to pass its props, styles, and its behavior to its child component or child element instead of re-rendering its own DOM element again. Okay, so that's the reason we are using the slot. So it directly passes its behaviors, its slide, its styles, its props to its child elements instead of re-rendering its entire DOM. Okay, so the core problem to resolve the real world issue. So like let's say for instance, let's talk about an instance. So here this is a link tag, link component, and inside here if I'm using the button like click me or something. See, in a real case scenario, how does it components it being rendered inside the HTML? It will be rendered inside the HTML as anchor tag. Inside the anchor tag, it's going to have one more button tag, and it will have as the text in it. So this is how this entire components will be rendered inside the DOM element. So this is an invalid HTML, right? So interactive elements inside the interactive elements, that's going to cause an hydration issue, right? So that's for really a bad accessibility, and it will create a problematic screen renders. So this is where the slot comes in. Okay, so when you're using slot, if you're approaching this kind of stuff, okay, if you're approaching this kind of stuff, for instance, let's say button, basically this button is going to act as a child, and inside if I supply the link tag and if I simply say click me or login, something like that. So how does this renders the HTML? This will renders the HTML as anchor tag, and here it will renders that particular text. This is how it will works with the slot. Okay, so the button does not render again. Okay, it will simply pass its child props behavior styles to the link tag. Okay, so it forwards its props to its child elements. That's the most important thing when you are working with the slot. So that's the thing you need to understand it over here. Okay, so now we don't need this stuff. Let me delete it. Let's get back to the main coding stuff over here. So we're going to create a certain list of components over here. So the list of components over here for the breadcrumb that we are going to create is, so let me enable the multi-line. So the components that we need to create, that is going to be breadcrumb, and it's going to be breadcrumb list, and breadcrumb item, and breadcrumb link, and breadcrumb page, and breadcrumb separator, and we need to create one more this, that is going to be breadcrumb ellipsis. These are the components that we need to create. Okay, so let's go ahead and how in a real case scenarios they used to create these stuffs. Okay, so let me import that cn function which we created. Import cn function from util libraries. Then let me import two different icons that I'm going to use inside, which is going to be chevron right icon. Then I need the more horizontal icon, these two icons. Okay, so right after here, so first what we are going to do, we are going to create an root breadcrumb navigation wrapper. This is the place where we are going to create root breadcrumb navigation wrapper. Okay, so for that I'm just going to create a function called breadcrumb. Breadcrumb is equals to, open it as a callback function. Okay, an arrow function. So basically this function, what it's going to do, it's going to collect the props. So that props which is going to collect from the React, it's going to get the component props, collect the component props of the type of nav tag. It needs to receive all the properties which is related to the nav. Whenever I'm using this component, it needs to receive the properties of the nav element. Okay, then inside over here, I'm going to return the nav tag, nav as a self-closing tag. Okay, so the area label which I'm going to use for this area label. So the area label which is going to be breadcrumb, that's the area label I'm going to use for this tag. Then the data slot. For the data slot, I'm going to use the same name, breadcrumb. Okay, then I need to destructure all the props. Okay, this is it. That's it. This is it. This is how you can create the breadcrumb root wrapper. 1 second. So what exactly happening over here? So basically the const breadcrumb, at this point, what we are doing, we are creating a React functional component named breadcrumb component, right? It basically it's a reusable UI component. It will be used like something like this, breadcrumb, and inside that we used to have those coding stuffs and all those things. That's how we're going to use that component. Okay, so the props, so basically the props which we are receiving, which is the react.component props, which is taking this nav tag inside as a type. So this is the most important part which takes part in this entire function. So what does the react.component props nav mean? What does this mean? That's the most important thing you need to understand. So it tells the TypeScript, this component accepts all valid properties that are normal HTML nav tag. For this normal HTML nav tag, elements accepts, it needs to accept all the normal properties which belongs to the nav tag. That includes the class name, id, style attribute, on click, children, area label, etc. Whatever the properties it's, you name it. Okay, so if you are supplying the properties which is not belongs to that nav tag, it will throws the error. That's the duty which we mentioned, like a type safety. That's the simple thing which ensures the type safety over there. Okay, so inside the nav tag we are rendering a component. What component we are rendering? We are rendering the nav tag component. which accepts all the basic properties that belongs to the nav tag. Okay, and we are specifying the area label and the data slot name as the breadcrumb. That exactly which is happening over here. Okay, so the reason why we are using the area label, because that's the accessibility feature. Why we need this? When the screen is rendered, may encounter multiple nav elements on the same page. So we don't want that issue, right? So if the user, if you are using the we can use the nav tag for the navigation in the header tag, and we are trying to use it in the breadcrumb also. So to show that some differentiations, we are using this. All right, so that's the reason. Okay, so the data slot over here, that is the custom attribute, custom data attribute. Why is this used? Because it helps for debugging, and it's useful for on testing cases, test cases. Okay, and it also allows you for writing the styles based on the data slot name. We can target that based on the key props. Okay, that's the reason. Okay, I hope you understand why the purpose they returned it. Next, what we need to do, we need to create the ordered list. Just exactly the same stuff. We're gonna get that properties, and we're gonna render it, and we're gonna write the styles inside it. That's it. That's all we are gonna do. That's exactly how they created it. So ordered list. So here I'm just going to say const breadcrumb list, which is equals to an arrow function, and inside this function basically we're going to collect the props, which is going to be so for the breadcrumb list, even user can also able to send some custom styles, not only the default styles, it should be able to send the custom styles as well as. So in that situation, I'm going to create myself a custom props. Okay, so the props which are we are going to receive inside in it, which is going to be the class name from the user itself. Then I'm going to destructure all the props, native props, which belongs to the react.component props, which is going to be the oval tag, ordered list. Okay, that's how we are going to collect all those things. Then inside over here, we're going to return a component. What we are going to return? We are going to return the oval tag. Okay, so this is going to be a self-closing tag. Then here I'm just going to use the data slot. So what is the data slot that we are going to do? Which is going to be breadcrumb list. Use the hyphen over here. Then I'm going to supply the class name. For the class name of that oval tag, we're going to use this cn function in order to merge conditional based tailwind merge. So I'm going to use that cn function. Here I'm going to supply all my default styles. Then along with that, whatever the class that user supply, it needs to be there. Okay, then I'm going to destructure all the default props inside over here. Okay, so here we are getting some issues. Class name, issue. Something is. Let me destructure the props. Oh, okay, my bad. So the way I used the props is wrong. This is how you need to, because that's a rest operator, right? We need to wrap it inside the curly brackets, then only that will remove that issue. Okay. This is the thing, just exactly the same way. Now for this, I'm going to write some custom styles over here, which is going to be flex wrap, and everything needs to be in the center. Gap needs to be 1.5 text gap. Then text extremely needs to be small, and the text color, you can say text neutral 800, something like that. I think 600 is more than enough. Okay, then wrap break word. We need to break the word if you are wrapping it too much. Then on the smaller screen size, gap needs to be 2.5. That's the default styles that we want to use it for this order list. Now we have the order list in our hand. Next, we need to target the individual list item, the li tag. inside the OL tag, we need to have the li tag, right? So we are going to target the individual list item. So for that only we have this breadcrumb breadcrumb item, which is going to be a callback function. And this function is basically going to take the multiple properties, which is going to be the class name one and another one which is going to be the props, and that is going to be the type of the react dot component props, which is the type of the li tag itself. Okay, and inside over here I'm going to return a component, which is basically it's going to be an li tag, which is a self-closing tag. And for this here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the data slot as a custom attribute name, which is going to be breadcrumb item. Then class name, for the class name, what we are going to do, we're going to use the cn function. We're going to merge the custom styles, and along with that we're going to bring the class name property. Then I'm going to bring the rest of the properties inside over here. So for this class name, what are the styles that we are going to use? It's going to be the inline flex property. Use the inline flex property. Item center gap, which is going to be 1.5. That's it. That's all about your breadcrumb items. The most important stuff you need to understand only this, why we are writing that type property, which we already know that. Okay. And now for the link tag, as I explained why I need to use the slot, right? So I'm going to show you the two different code. One, how with using this third party slot, and if I don't want to use that, how I can write it, how I can get the same output without using the third party library, like a polymorphic, without using no slot. So how I can write that. So let's try the first one, breadcrumb link, like a polymorphic like a no slot, using this. Okay, so first what you need to do, I need to write the type breadcrumb link props. Okay, that props, which is going to be as a t, which is going to be extends. T is the custom name, variable name, which property it's going to extends react dot element type. It's going to extend the react dot element type, which is going to be as an objects. Okay, so here we're going to use the as an optional parameter, use the t. Then we're going to have the class name that is also going to be an optional parameter, that is also going to be a string. Then right, these are the two objects that you have to keep it inside that property, that inside this object. Then this object, along with that, I'm going to extract react dot component props. Okay, component props without reference. We're going to use this component props without reference. We're going to supply this t in it. Okay, so here let me explain this, what exactly happening over here. So before moving into it, let me finish it, then I can explain it completely. So const breadcrumb link, we're going to use the const breadcrumb link. So basically it's going to have the props, right, an arrow function, and inside this function what we are going to do, we're going to have the props, right? So that is going to be from where, breadcrumb link props. From this props I'm going to access a very specific, it's going to take the t, the element, it's an element type. Okay, and this component needs to extend an element type, right? So for that, here it needs to extend an element type. Open it. Inside here, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say t extends react dot element type. Okay, that is what we are supplying before it. And now inside here, this function, I'm going to say as the keyword, class name as the keyword, then and the remaining props, we're going to collect all the remaining props from that property, from that specific element type, whatever the element type that we are supplying into it. Then inside over here, inside this function, let me enable the word wrap so you can see it. Inside here, I'm going to create this component which equals to as. Either use that whatever the component from outside I'm supplying, use it as, or use the default one as the anchor tag. Okay, if I from the outside, if I'm supplying it as a link tag, use it as a link tag, or else go with the anchor tag. That's the concept over here. Then I'm just going to say return, open it, get the component as a self-closing tag. Then the rest of the stuff like the data slot. For the data slot, what we are going to use, we're going to use the breadcrumb link. Then the class name. For the class name, we're going to use the cn function, which is going to have a custom styles along with the user class names. So the custom class names which we are going to use over here, which is going to be transition colors, because when you're hovering it, you need to see some transitions, right? So whenever I'm hovering it, I'm just going to give the color as text neutral 800 or 900, something like that, 900. Okay, then at the end I need to destructure, bring all the rest of the props. Okay, that's the breadcrumb link. So this is what. So basically what we returned over here, it's kind of like the advanced stuff, and this is the most important thing. It explains it slowly. Let me explain it slowly and step by step, like how you could understand it, right? So here, the very first step, what we did, we using this t extends react.element type. So what is this react.element type? So it represents anything React can render as a component, such as anchor tag, span tag, div tag, or the custom components like the any external UI library link tags, right? Any React component, literally you can render it. So this means T can be a valid React element or a component, which means the T stands for valid React element or a React component. Okay. So why we are using the generic T? Because we want this component to be polymorphic. That means sometimes it can render an anchor tag, and sometimes it should be able to render the span tag, right? Or even sometimes it should be able to render the any third party tags as well as, right? So one component, multiple possible HTML elements. So that's the situations over here. Okay, so then the type breadcrumb props extends that element type. What exactly that it's happening? This defines the property types for that specific component. Okay, so let me break it down. So here we have this as question mark D. So this allows the user to choose what element or component to render. So this is the place where we are deciding what element that we are trying to render. Okay, if I am from the outside, if I'm supplying a span tag, it will act as a span tag. If I supply a link tag, it will act as a link tag. If I doesn't supply anything, it will act as the anchor tag. Okay, so then next, how we are specifying it. So for instance, let's say breadcrumb link, if I doesn't supply it anything, okay, how the anchor HTML will renders this? The HTML will be rendered it like an anchor tag, like this. But at the same way, if I supply it like using as property, if I supply the value as something like a string value as a span tag, what happens? Instead of this anchor tag, it will be rendered as the span tag. See, that's the difference. That is what we are trying to do over there. Okay. Then we also used this very specific line. What is that component without a reference? So this is the most important part in the entire line. So what does this mean? So include all the valid props of whatever the element T is, span or link or whatever it is. Okay, that's the exact thing that we instructed over here, because we don't know what component is going to come in, right? So whatever the component is coming in as without any reference, include all the valid props. That's what we are instructing over that. Okay, so I hope now you understand what exactly it is. See, this is what you need to do if you are not using the third party Radix React slot. But if you want to keep it simple, the minimum number of lines of code, and you don't want to complicate yourself with the type safety and all those stuffs, you can go with this one. Okay, so this is the normal traditional approach with the TypeScript. And if you're using the React Radix React slot, let me show you how to do that now. So just like the way breadcrumb link is equals to create a normal arrow function, and let me open this and receive the properties inside init, which is going to be as child, and by default it's going to be the false as a boolean value. Then we're going to receive the class name, then we're going to get the rest of the props, which is going to be the type. We need to specify the type, right? So react dot components component props, which is going to be the type of the anchor tag. By default we are specifying that, but inside I'm going to structure the element, right? So const element, which is going to be as child. If I receive any child, render that child, render that slot completely in it. Otherwise use the anchor tag. That's what we are specifying over here. Then at the end return open it. I'm going to return the element, enter. Then you can use the same stuff what we returned over here. This is it. Okay, so but here what we need to do, this as child, we are getting an error. Okay, so we are getting a type error now because as child is the type doesn't exist inside your HTML anchor element. So in order to fix this, what I need to do is right after here I need to use as child, include this as child property as an optional one as a boolean type. Now you don't get that property. So along with this, we are including one more type for this as child, because as child is not an inbuilt default property of your anchor tag. We need to include that one also by a boolean value. Okay, now this one is completed. Next we need to write the styles for the active breadcrumb page. So for the active breadcrumb page, I'm just going to say breadcrumb page, which is equals to just exactly the same way as an arrow function. Okay, so I hope you now you get the point, right? Just exactly the same stuff we're gonna do again and again, but with a different style. So let me write the styles for the breadcrumb. So we are getting the class name and the props by using the React component props of the span tag by extracting all the valid properties. Then for the span tag, we are setting the data slot, area current as a page, area disable, that needs to be disabled because user should not click that breadcrumb. Then role as a link, then supply the class names and get the rest of the properties over here. Then we need to get the separator for the breadcrumb, like the chevron right arrow mark in the any breadcrumb you can see. That's what we are going to get over here. So that is also, which is going to be const breadcrumb separator, which is going to be an arrow function. Open it, and inside over here you need to collect the children, because even if the user wish to send any other icon apart from chevron right, it's need to ready that children icon in it, right? If I don't supply that icon, it's going to use the default icon. If I supply any external icons from outside, it needs to be ready to print that. Okay, then get that react.component props from what? From the li tag. Okay, then inside over here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to return as an li. Here for this, we're going to bring the area slot and the rest of the props and everything. Okay, but this time this li tag is not going to be a self-closing tag. It's going to have a children in it, right? Because if the user sending an icon, it needs to render that icon inside here, right? So supply those properties, and inside that li tag, what I'm going to do, if I have the children any external icon, render it, or else render this default chevron right icon, which we do have imported on the top, something like that. Okay, then one last thing, which is going to be the breadcrumb ellipses, like collapsible. If you're having a multiple page if you're inside a multiple sub pages, we can't display everything on a single line. We need to have a the collapsible breadcrumb. So for that, const breadcrumb ellipses is equals to open it, and here also you need to do the same stuff by getting the same class name and props as a type. We're gonna get the react.component props as a type from the span tag, and inside over here I'm gonna extract the class name, Then I'm going to bring the default props, all the rest of the props. I need to collect all the rest of the props inside over here. Then inside this function, I'm going to return a span tag, which basically it's going to be an open tag. Okay, for the span tag, we're going to have the common properties, the data label properties and the class name properties like this. And inside this span tag, basically what we are going to do, we're going to bring that more horizontal icon. Then I need to render this span, which is going to give the text as more. For this, I'm just going to say SR only, which is basically if there is any issue on loading this icon, this needs to be rendered. See, that's the reason we are using these styles like position, absolute, width 1, height 1, padding, all these stuffs and everything. Okay. Now we have to export all these stuffs. What I have to do, export as breadcrumb and breadcrumb ellipsis, breadcrumb item, breadcrumb link, breadcrumb list, and breadcrumb page, and breadcrumb separator. How many stuffs we need to have? 2, 4, 6, 7, 2, 2, 4, 6, and 7. All these things are being exported now. Okay. Now let me show you how we can use this. Let's get back into the app.tsx. Okay. So I'm gonna import all these stuffs first. So let me import. So here, let me import from ./component/breadcrumb. So from here we're gonna bring all the breadcrumbs component which we been exported from there. Breadcrumb ellipsis, item, link, list, page, separator, literally everything. Okay. Then inside over here we're gonna bring this. Okay, what we are going to do, I'm gonna bring let me run this application, npm run dev, run dev, and let me, yep, so I can't see anything over here. So what we have to do is first I need to bring the breadcrumb, which is the main nav tag. Inside this nav tag, we need to bring the breadcrumb list, which is the OL tag. Breadcrumb list. We have to bring the list. Then we need to bring the item, which is going to be the li tag. So breadcrumb item. Okay. Now inside the item, this is the place where we need to bring the icon, the link, breadcrumb link, the anchor tag. So basically for the anchor tag, we need to supply the href, which is going to be hash, and that is going to be home. Save it. Save it. You should be able to see the text called home, and you can see it's a link tag. Then what I need to do, I need to bring the separator right after this item. So breadcrumb separator, which is a self-closing tag. Now I should be able to see the chevron right icon over there. Then what I need to do, I need to bring one more item with a specific text. Okay, and this time this is going to be about. See, or we can simply say something over there. Okay, then again I need to bring the separator right after here. I can able to see the separator. Then I need to bring the current page, breadcrumb item. Inside the item I need to bring the current page. So breadcrumb page, which is going to be current page. Current page. See, and this will be disabled. And if you wish to keep it on as different styles and all those things, you can do that, even do that. So breadcrumb page, where it is, here it is. So it's using this style color. So I'm gonna say what we can say, neutral 500 something. So you can see the color differentiations over there. And if I hover it, I should be able to see the color changes as well as over there, right? So this is how we can create ourselves a completely reusable component in a different cases, in different scenario. And that's how they used to create a React with the TypeScript, just the plain React stuff. This is how they worked in the framework, like the UI library, the shadcn UI, materialistic UI. This is how the backend coding stuff it's working. Well, this is the exact same code. You can find it in their official documentation itself. That's what exactly they used for that component. So I just want you to break it out and how exactly that stuff is, the component is working. Right? If you're having any questions or if I make any mistakes over there, please don't hesitate to drop that in the comment sections. I'm happy to learn and I'm happy to help you out also. So I'll see you in the next video.